Oh, jam. What? Not jam.
Hello. Oh, it's nice to see some familiar faces. That's always nice to do a meeting with friendly faces in there. Hi, Amy. Hi, Gina. Hey, Heather. Oh, Heather, it's been a long time since I've seen you. All right, so let's do a little housekeeping and make sure I'm recording this video. Everything's going all right. Okay, so logistics for the webinar. Since it's a bigger group than usual, I decided to just mute everybody so that we don't have any accidental background stuff coming in. And in the interest of time, I thought we keep most of the questions until the end. You know, if something comes up and you're like, oh, we need to clarify that, you know, go ahead and raise your hand. And if I'm not on a total roll, and I see it, then I'll unmute you and to ask your question. Otherwise, use the chat and I'll keep an eye on that, but likely I'll wait until the end so that people who just want to get this done and get off the phone can just leave and catch the, you know, Q&A on the replay. And remember, there will be a replay emailed to everybody later this week when we've got it all sorted out. So this is going to be an overview. I'm going to really touch lightly on a bunch of things and kind of just keep cruising through. So if you feel like, I didn't understand that fully, just know that you're going to be able to go through it and ask questions at the end. All right, so let's make a start here. I'm going to share my screen. And first of all, can people give me a thumbs up that you can see me and hear me all right? Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. Okie doke. So I said all this stuff. Raise your hand if you want to be unmuted. I'm going to try, you know, I can't actually see everybody. This is a bit tricky. When I'm sharing my screen, it's hard to see everybody. So the chat is the way to go. If you need to ask me something, I've got the chat open. So introduction, my name is Karen Kennedy. I'm a certified nutritionist, a diabetes prevention program lifestyle coach, and board certified in integrative and functional nutrition. This is Ozzy. He loves it that I practice telehealth, not only because I can work with anyone, anywhere, but I can do it with him no more than 5 feet away from me at all times because he is a Velcro dog. So let's get in briefly into the why we care about blood sugar. You know, regulating blood sugar has become the health focus of our time. Without spending too much time on the why, I'll say that after the years of working in this area, I have seen that what I'll call blood sugar dysregulation is really at the root of many health issues, most actually in this country. So that's why I like to keep talking about blood sugar a lot, because it touches on so many things that affect so many people. And I've seen some pretty big transformations occur just when individuals focus on this little slice of their health. And, you know, blood sugar, typically through the action of insulin, it affects a lot of other systems in the body, and getting some control over this can help prevent heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, I didn't spell that right, obesity, anxiety, hormone dysregulation, erectile dysfunction, and more. So it's not everything, but it's a big piece of the puzzle. So foundations. I have two different presentations that I'm going to go through. So I'm going to come back out of this screen share, and I'm going to go over and just share a little bit of a slideshow presentation that I do for one of my other classes on carbohydrates and blood sugar. Because before we talk about hacking, how to hack our blood sugar, we need to actually understand what blood sugar is and a little bit of terminology. And then the hacks will make a lot more sense. So when we talk about blood sugar, we're generally talking about carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are one of the 3 macronutrients in nutrition. So the micronutrients are like vitamins and minerals. Macronutrients are protein, fats, and carbs. And while that is more nuanced than just carbohydrates, we're just going to talk about carbohydrates to keep it simple. And the main food sources of carbohydrates are things like grains, legumes, starchy vegetables like the root vegetables, fruits, milk. A lot of people forget that milk is actually a big source of carbohydrates, sugars in our diet, and the other obvious ones like honey, maple syrup, and cane sugar. And types of carbohydrates, I'm going to stay away from saying good and bad. And I'm just going to talk about carbohydrates in terms of their kinetics in our bodies, and like fast and slow. There's some carbohydrates that enter the bloodstream very quickly and some that are a little slower. And the quick ones are the simple sugars like monosaccharides and disaccharides. And let's not get too in the weeds with this one. I just want you to have some terminology to know that carbohydrates are generally glucose, fructose, like in fruit. And those can be combined to make sucrose, which is table sugar, lactose, which is in milk, maltose, which you rarely see unless you're brewing beer. But these simple sugars get absorbed into the bloodstream rapidly when you eat them because they're already broken down into a form that you can absorb into the bloodstream. Contrast this with what I call slow carbs or starches or complex carbohydrates, all the same thing. And you can see that these starches are just made of repeating units of glucose. Okay, it's the same thing. And you might have heard people, I know there's some books out there from years back that say a sugar is a sugar. Once it's in your bloodstream, it's all the same. It doesn't matter if it comes from a Snickers bar or rice. And while that's true, the speed at which it comes in matters. And that's what we're going to get at a little today. So when we break down starches, sugars in our digestive system, it happens using enzymes like amylase. And we're going to Pac-Man this, my little Pac-Man guy. When we're chewing our food in our mouth or when in our small intestine, these enzymes just clip off individual glucose units so that we can then absorb them. So you can see how this starch is like a time-release carbohydrate because it takes a while for these enzymes to break them down. And then this is my little picture of the gut. This is the lumen of the gut, this gray box, also the tube of the intestine. And this tube, this is where you've swallowed your glucose. This is your disaccharides in here. And then you have enzymes that just break those down into simple sugars, into monosaccharides, and they get absorbed into the bloodstream, where they go from being glucose to being blood glucose. And blood glucose equals blood sugar. It's the same thing. We just use different words. And now here's the tricky bit. Here's the interesting bit, really. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the kinetics of blood sugar, because how quickly it goes into the bloodstream and how high a concentration you get or low a concentration you get of blood sugar matters. And so don't get put off by this graph if you're thinking, oh my gosh, this looks really technical. It is a little technical, but it's a life skill. So this graph, the horizontal axis, the x-axis here is time. So you can think of time 0 as when you get up in the morning to break your fast. And then the vertical axis, the y-axis, this is the concentration of blood sugar. And I'm keeping it simple with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And blood sugar in our body, it needs to be tightly regulated in what I'll call the Goldilocks zone. So just like the temperature of your body, your blood sugar levels want to be tightly regulated in a narrow band. You're never going to have 0 blood sugar or you're going to be dead. And you don't want it really high. Either are very stressful for the body. It works to maintain an even level blood sugar. So let's look at an example meal. If you eat a meal with something like complex carbohydrates, like oatmeal, let's say these are slow carbohydrates, you're going to see a graph like this. You start off at this sort of baseline blood sugar levels. And then as you absorb those time release carbohydrates, it goes up and then comes down in this pretty mellow curve that stays in the Goldilocks zone. And that's great. But let's contrast this with a meal of some more of those fast carbohydrates, like cold cereal with milk, or even juice, something like orange juice or apple juice, which is just fast sugar. You'll get a graph like this, where you start off in the same place, this baseline fasting blood glucose, but that blood sugar, that glucose goes in so fast, you end up way up here with hyperglycemia, which is stressful and dangerous to the body. And then you'll often overreact. Some of us overreact to that, but you can bottom out and get something like hypoglycemia at the end, low blood sugar. So this is very stressful for the body, and you can see how it's different than the oatmeal. For you math people out there, you can have the same area under the curve with both meals, but the kinetics matter. See how hard this is for the body to regulate the extremes of the fast carbohydrates. And then we can actually do one better, which is what we're going to do when we're hacking. We're going to go one better with the hacks. And so you'd eat like a balanced meal where you don't just have carbohydrates, you have some protein, fat, and fiber. And in that meal, you get a curve like this, that you start off at that fasting blood sugar level, the baseline, and it really doesn't go up very high before it comes down. You've flattened the curve. And I think we all know what it means to flatten the curve now. But that's what you've done. This is so much easier on your body. It's so much less stressful. Your body doesn't have to work as hard to regulate itself. And you're not going to have the symptoms and the health consequences of really high or really low blood sugar. So this is really the goal of this Hack Your Blood Sugar, is we want to go from this yo-yo blood sugar of simple sugars and get curves that look more like the complex carbohydrates or even this balanced meal. And I'm going to give you an overview of some of my favorite hacks to be able to do that. All right, are you guys with me still? Because I'm going to go back now and we're going to talk about hacks. So that's just to give you a little bit of a foundation there. Okay, so you probably saw this board. I made this, what this is supposed to be with my my very basic graphic design that I do on Canva, is when I've been teaching people how to hack their blood sugar for years and years, but I realized that I was giving some of the same advice all the time. And it occurred to me, because a friend of mine does some sound engineering, that it's kind of like a mixing board, a sound mixing board. There's lots of different levers that we can pull on to help us hack our blood sugar, to help us regulate our blood sugar. And you can choose. You're a grown-up. You can choose what works for you. Like what is actually effective at regulating your blood sugar, and what do you prefer? Like I know people who just like, I am not going to reduce my carbohydrates. I don't want to change my diet. I don't want to count carbs. I don't want to do any of that stuff, but I love exercising. So I'm just going to exercise and eat whatever the heck I want. And that works for some people. And there's some people who can't exercise because of injury or for whatever reason. And so for those people, exercise isn't a hack that they can use. So they pull some other hacks like their diet or fasting or using proteins or all these. And these aren't the only hacks. These are just the ones I'm going to talk about today. So let's talk about carbohydrate restriction first, because this almost isn't a hack. This is just what you do. If you're someone who has prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, you actually do need to back off the carbohydrates a bit. It is a deal breaker, but we have to personalize it to the individual. And the amount of carbohydrates you eat will depend on your activity level. It's a direct exchange. Carbohydrates are for energy. If you're a very physically active person, you can tolerate more of them. If you're not, you don't need as many. How do you measure your blood sugars? I'll talk to you about that at the end. Good question, Christy. And of course, quality matters, because as I showed you earlier on those graphs when we were learning the foundations, if you eat, there's a big difference between eating your carbohydrates from juice and eating an apple versus apple juice, because you're going to have fiber in there that's going to slow your blood sugar down. So carbohydrate restriction is really a whole talk in and of itself. But in my classes, we often start, and I mean, this is still just a place to start experimenting with a chart like this, where we look at how active you are and your body composition. And so when you see this body composition chart, you can see something called the Insulin Meter. And that's just it's a metric that we use, which is basically your waist measurement, to determine what is your metabolic health. How well are you able to metabolize and deal with carbohydrates? Because if you're a little closer to prediabetes, closer to type 2 diabetes, it tells us that you're not able to handle carbohydrates as well right now, and you should have fewer of them at your meal. But like I said, this is a highly personalized thing. And even this chart, which is a nice place to start, is just a starting point. So the second hack that we use, and also these hacks are also the ones that I get asked about the most. I kind of think these are the popular ones that people want to talk about. So I hope that I'm hitting the ones that you're most interested in. Are natural remedies. People always say, oh, I hear if I eat this, it'll lower my blood sugar. And there are some natural remedies that are actually very effective. And I'll talk about two of them briefly. One is vinegar. Vinegar, the acetic acid in the vinegar actually slows the release of food from your stomach, enhancing that time release effect. And I'll talk about the time release effect a little bit more later. And so this can help reduce that spike and flatten your curve. So some people will take like 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar with a meal or at bedtime. And some people just have a salad with a vinaigrette dressing. And so not only do you get the fiber from the vegetables, which helps, and you'll also get that vinegar, which slows the gastric emptying. So that's an actual hack. Berberine, you might have heard about this one. It actually impacts a lot of different things on your health that can be beneficial to you. But berberine can be as beneficial to leveling at your blood sugar as the drug metformin, which is a very popular diabetic drug, anti-diabetes drug. So berberine has an impact on microbiome, blood sugar, cholesterol, and blood pressure. It's really interesting. It's found in the European barberry, around here, the Oregon grapefruit, golden seal. And some people will take it just like a medication. And it has a really powerful effects, so much so that I know people who actually stopped taking it because it was a little too extreme for them. Not not even a month ago, I have a client who we were using Berberine for her because she had a bit of dysbiosis, and we were using that to kind of knock back some yeast overgrowth. And she was also wearing a continuous glucose monitor. And we found that when she was using the products that had a lot of berberine in them, her blood sugar was in much better control. Chrissy says vinegar causes your tongue to become inflamed. Yeah, so vinegar might not be a good hack for you. But also when people do drink the vinegar, it's always recommended to rinse your mouth out, because you don't want that acid on your teeth. Protein. So protein is probably my top hack. It's one of my top hacks. And the reason protein is my top hack is, I'm going to go here, no, not that. Anyways, you have to eat protein anyways. You have to eat protein. It's, you're going to eat it. So you might as well be strategic about it and use it to help regulate your blood sugar. So the way protein works is, like some of the other things, is it slows gastric emptying, creating a time release effect. So the way protein does this is, when we digest our protein needs to sit in the stomach, in the actual stomach, where there's acid and enzymes that break down protein present in the stomach. So when you eat protein, your body secretes a hormone that tells your stomach, hold on to that food longer, keep that food in there. And so the stomach holds on to it and just releases it down to the small intestine, where you absorb your food, a little more slowly, just giving it more of a time release effect, flattening that glucose curve. Gina says she's been using Berberine for a long time and it works really well. And Berberine doesn't seem to take a while to build up, Sue. The other thing about protein is you need to eat it first. So think about this. If protein holds things in the stomach longer, but you eat, let's say you go to the steakhouse and you get a salad and a baked potato and a steak, and you eat your baked potato first. Or let's say you eat your bread first and then your baked potato. So 2 carbs, and then your steak, and then your salad. Well, those carbohydrates are going to come through and get into your small intestine probably before that steak gets in there. So you won't get that curve blunting, that spike blunting effect of the protein. You need to eat the protein first. So the order of eating is actually an incredibly beneficial hack. And again, you're going to eat the food, so just change the order of it and you will see a difference. So I always recommend, for various reasons, the order of eating is drink your water, because hydration matters for different reasons I won't go into, but actually it helps you regulate your blood sugar and manage your weight better if you're hydrated. So drink your water first. Eat your protein and non-starchy vegetables, so steak and salad, since you're at the steakhouse in this example, and then eat your carbohydrates. You could eat the same meal in a different order and you'll see a very different blood sugar curve. And I think I have a picture of one here. Yeah. So this is a picture of my continuous glucose monitor when I was at the beach on vacation with my family, my mom and my sister and my daughter. And my mom brought her Crusteaks pancake mix. I don't know how you say Crusteaks, but it's not the good pancake mix in terms of like health and blood sugar. And I definitely like to take care of myself when I'm out, but I also believe in being gracious and eating what I'm given for the most part. So I decided I'm going to test this out since I had a continuous glucose monitor on. And I did have some pancakes, but I had 2 eggs and a piece of bacon. I don't think the bacon did much, but I don't know if you can see this, but my blood sugar curve, it hardly spiked. This is just a little bump in my blood sugar. And I've had pancakes before on an empty stomach, and that blood sugar curve should have gone way up and way down because I have pretty sensitive blood sugar. But that is the power of having some protein before you eat. And you need to eat enough. I think I read a study that came out recently. They actually were looking at protein powders, using a protein smoothie, a protein powder before your meal. And it's about 20 grams of protein that helps blunt that. And just briefly, you might be saying, yeah, what does 20 grams of protein look like, Karen? 2 eggs have 14 grams of protein. If you're eating meat or fish or chicken, some kind of flesh food, then we always like to say the size of a serving that looks like a deck of cards, that's about 20 grams of protein, if that makes it easy. People are asking about pea protein and protein powders. I think protein powders are great. I think they're great for busy days where you're just not hungry, because a lot of my clients have a lot of chronic pain and some nausea. But they're great when you're busy or want a pre or post workout meals on the go. And in that case, protein powders are great. And pea protein is fine. You should find the protein powder that you like and that your body that your body tolerates. And there's a lot of different kinds. The next hack is another magic hack, and this is exercise. Any kind of exercise you can add in is going to be good. In fact, there is no exercise that is going to be bad for you in terms of helping you regulate your blood sugar, except for over-exercising. Because over-exercising, you might know, raises your stress levels, raises your cortisol levels, and that is harmful to your blood sugar. And I think I have a slide on that later. So you could work on your zone 2, like zone 2 training for 150 minutes a week. And zone 2 is like your cardio zone. That helps to train your mitochondria and really improves your fitness and your mitochondrial function. And diabetes really is in large part a mitochondrial disease. Strength training improves your insulin sensitivity. In fact, when I know I'm going to have a big feast like Thanksgiving, that is leg day in more ways than one. I like leg, turkey leg meat. That was a pun. That was a joke. But I'll try to do a big leg day at the gym, really lifting heavy for me on my legs, because those big muscles in your butt and your legs, when you lift and really stress them in the morning, working out, they are going to be hungry for glucose for at least a day. And I have seen whatever I eat that evening after I've lifted weights, my body just sucks that glucose in and stores it away and manages my glucose much better than if I hadn't lifted weights. So, a little bit of cardio in that zone 2, strength training and high intensity workouts can improve insulin sensitivity for up to 48 hours. And yeah, that's a typo. So this is an example I've taken. So this is an actual blood sugar graph from using a continuous glucose monitor. And you can ignore some of this here, but what I want you to see is right here, you can see this gray box is the Goldilocks zone, where you're trying to stay in your Goldilocks zone. And this person ate a meal. It looks like they had a slice of very nutty bread, some strawberries. Anyways, whatever they ate here spiked their blood sugar up to 150, which isn't that bad, but it's higher than we're wanting to keep it for this program. And also look at before that. You can see before that, their blood sugar was it was cruising around above 100. It just wasn't coming down. And we were kind of wanting their baseline blood sugar to be more like 75 to 90. Well, after they ate this, you can see down here that they exercised. They went for a walk. And I'm telling you, a walk, a stroll, not a hike, not a jog, a stroll around the block. And look at how quickly their blood sugar came down. It came down, and it came down below where it was before they ate. It came down to 83. And that is the impact that exercise has. It's really, really the top hack. If you can do it, do it. And the saying I like is the best exercise is the one that you will actually do. Anything is better than sitting. And if you're like me, I kind of intuitively feel like when I eat, I should then go lay down and read a book for a while and just digest. That just feels like a really civilized thing to do. But in fact, even just getting up and doing the dishes, walking, or going for a constitutional, going for a digestive stroll, a sniff walk with your dog, that will help you digest your food better. It will reduce your GERD, your reflux and heartburn, and it will improve your blood sugar more than anything else. Am I going backwards? I'm going backwards. And also, exercise builds muscle, especially if you're doing resistance training, which, oh my gosh, is so important, because more muscle equals better insulin sensitivity. You know, most people, when they lose weight, especially if they repeatedly lose and gain, when we lose weight, as in pounds on the scale, we are always losing fat and muscle. It is very hard not to lose muscle when you lose weight. And the only way to stop that, to halt it, is to eat enough protein and do strength training. So every time we lose weight, when lose muscle, we're actually losing some of that insulin sensitivity, because remember, the muscles are a glucose sink. They actually help it. Let's come back to zone 2 exercise, Heather. Ask me towards the end, because that's a great question. Oh, actually, no, I can say it now. So zone 2 exercise, the zone 2 is usually, if you know, when you're trying to keep your heart rate in the zone, in your cardio zone, that's zone 2. And that's the range where you can work in an aerobic state. Your mitochondria can work in aerobic respiration, because once you get up to zone 3 or zone 4 and your heart rate gets higher, then you're taking it from mitochondrial Krebs cycle. You're not doing the Krebs cycle anymore. It's all just glycolysis and then lactic acid production. Amy says the hack she used really helped you with heartburn. Yeah. Oh, the walking after a meal is everything. So more muscle equals better function, of course, because as we get older, you need the muscles to keep being able to do what you need to do. And muscle mass is correlated with longevity. I mean, you don't have to be huge, but having that muscle means you have better longevity and stable weight. It keeps you from going up and down. Fasting. So fasting is a super popular topic now, and for good reason. But I want to touch on it briefly, but I also want to point out a few pitfalls of it and some benefits. Time restricted eating. Well, first, let's talk about what fasting is and what fasting isn't. There's 2 kinds of fasting I'm talking about. There's time restricted eating, and then what I would call fasting. So time restricted eating is basically daily fasting overnight for 12 hours or longer. And I mean, I call time restricted eating it's a rebranding of normal eating. The kitchen is closed and it's not going to open again until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So just stop eating and go to bed, right? But now we call it time restricted eating. And that's important because we exist on a circadian rhythm, right? Our digestive system, our whole metabolism, everything is on a circadian rhythm in our body. And our ability to metabolize glucose changes. So if we had a bowl of cereal, which I recommend you never do, in fact, if you had a bowl of cereal at noon and were wearing a continuous glucose monitor and measured it, you could tolerate it better at noon than you could at 10 o'clock at night or even 8 o'clock at night, right? Because your insulin resistance goes up at night because actually melatonin interferes with it. Melatonin and insulin are kind of work against each other. So the midnight Taco Bell run that I used to hear advertised on TV, that's like the midnight diabetes run. Don't eat at night. It's just not good for you. It also interferes with your sleep and your liver's ability to detoxify. So time restricted eating is just normal eating rebranded to make it sound sexy. So if that's what it takes to get you to do it, then let's call it time restricted eating. But fasting is periodic fasting for 24 hours or more. So there's some benefits and drawbacks to intermittent fasting that I want to caution you about, but really you got to listen to your body, because sometimes when we're not very metabolically healthy, and when I say we're not metabolically healthy, it means, you know, pre-diabetes, diabetes, we're in a place where it's actually hard to fast. because our bodies naturally, this is what humans are great at. We're good at living off of carbohydrates, like food is plentiful, I am eating, I'm getting the energy, and I'm using it and storing it for later. And then when there's not food available, whether it's overnight or you're on a hike or, there's whatever, during the traditional winter time when there's less food available, you use up your stored energy, your stored fat. So you're using fat for fuel. So we can toggle back and forth between using carbohydrates for fuel and using our stored fat for fuel. And that's a healthy metabolism. That's a metabolic, what's the word I'm looking for? Flexibility, metabolic flexibility. If you're already in type 2 diabetes or pretty far down the road with pre-diabetes, you're often losing that metabolic flexibility. You can only use carbohydrates for fuel. And sometimes you have to go gradually over into using fat for fuel. And some people you can really jumpstart it by fasting. It's hard, but you can do it. But you'll find that if you're already in the diabetes area of things, that sometimes fasting can feel difficult. You have to listen to your own body. But the benefits of intermittent fasting is it improves metabolic flexibility. It's just like training a muscle. Teach your body to use the fat. And it helps your body to utilize stored energy. In other words, burn fat. It improves sleep because if you stop eating 3 hours before bedtime, it will improve your sleep because you're not digesting food while you're trying to sleep. And it really helps gastrointestinal symptoms like reflux, like SIBO, if you have SIBO. The drawbacks of intermittent fasting, the big drawback that I see with intermittent fasting is that people go, oh, well, I don't like breakfast anyways. And I'm not knocking that. Some people do better not having breakfast. They don't eat enough during the day and they just keep going on caffeine. They're just black coffee, skip breakfast, skip lunch, and then they start eating when they get home. They are tired. They're not adequately hydrated or with electrolytes. And then they overcompensate and they eat nonstop and they overeat food that might not be good for them. That isn't good because they often eat later and it interferes with their circadian rhythms, interferes with their sleep, whatever. So some people don't do that. But I find that people who don't do well with the time restricted eating, they need to bring it back in the day so that maybe they finish their eating by, well, at least by 3 hours before bedtime. So if your bedtime's 10, then at 7 o'clock. And sometimes this can give people an excuse to eat anything they want in their window. And while that sometimes works for people, it doesn't always work for people. So those are the drawbacks with intermittent fasting. Other than that, some people use it to great benefit. And in fact, I've been experimenting with fasting 1 day a week over a 24-hour period every week. And, I find, and other people have said, when you're just not eating, it's simple. You don't have to think about things. You're not engaging with food. So you don't have to have those challenging decisions or stopping at a certain time. You're just not eating. It's binary. And that can be very relaxing and simple. Sue's asking me electrolytes when I fast. I use LMNT electrolytes. I like those. There's different kinds to use, but that's the one I like for me. Sleep. Big hack. Again, you have to do it anyways. But I guess sleep is less of a hack and more of a, if you don't do it, it's going to undermine all of your efforts to regulate your blood sugar. It really is problematic. Poor sleep raises cortisol levels, and that decreases insulin sensitivity. Another way of saying that is poor sleep causes insulin resistance. Poor sleep, that means it raises blood sugar levels. And what's interesting is if you have really wonky blood sugar levels throughout the day, it does interfere with your sleep. And then that disrupted sleep causes insulin resistance the next day, which leads to dysregulated blood sugar, which disrupts your sleep. So it's this negative cycle. But on the flip side, I have seen this over and over. When people really even out their blood sugar, they start sleeping better. And when they sleep better, their blood sugar is better. And then their sleep's better. So they really affect each other. I always recommend to people, at the very least, stop eating 3 hours before bedtime, get a sleep evaluation done, and start mouth taping. Because my doctor told me that a couple years ago that at least 50% of postmenopausal women, this is just women, regardless of their weight, have sleep apnea, right? I think we associate sleep apnea with people who are overweight, but no, I am personally not an overweight person. I'm a fairly slender person, and I snore like a trucker. I really snore. It's not cute. And I will snore myself awake. I have mild sleep apnea. And for me, I'm just casually mentioning mouth taping, but I've talked about it before, and taping my mouth closed, which sounds weird, but it's getting a little more popular, with some of that Nextcare gentle paper tape at night, helps me nose breathe all night, reduces my snoring, and really improves my sleep. Oh yeah, this is a little slide that talks about cortisol. It's stress, anything that causes chronic stress, because a little bit of stress is okay. Every time we exercise is stress, but chronic, repeated exposure to stress raises our hormone cortisol. And, cortisol comes up first thing in the morning, gets us out of bed and gets us going, hopefully. But if you have high levels of cortisol throughout the day and into the evening, it suppresses melatonin and it disrupts your sleep. And the other thing, that if you have high cortisol levels and haven't slept, you will have more cravings for hyperpalatable foods, which is a fancy way of saying cheeseburgers and Snickers bars. It's hard to resist those cravings when your stress levels are high. So don't be too hard on yourself. Medications. So this is a hack. I know it's medication, but it is a hack. And this is out of my wheelhouse, but whether you use insulin or metformin or any of the other medications, these are all options. And when I work with people and we have them on continuous glucose monitors, sometimes we find, wow, I know you're doing everything you can right now, but your blood sugar is just out of control. And that's often a reason, why don't you talk to your doctor about trying out metformin or something? And they'll go on metformin, brings it down, they start feeling better. And then once we get it under control, then we can, come off of it gradually, maybe. So it's a hack. And I never, better life through chemistry. So I always try to use food and lifestyle changes first. But, sometimes those don't work. And sometimes medications make your life better. The trick is to make sure the medications are making your life better and aren't making it worse. So none of us are going to use just one of these levers at once. We're always going to mix it up. Most people will find that they dial the carbs down a little bit, or at least make them better quality carbohydrates. People will do a little bit of exercise. Maybe they'll do a couple days of zone 2, do a little bit of strength training, or maybe even on their walks, they stop on their walk and do some lunges and some push-ups. People change the order that they eat. Oh my gosh, I hope all of you go away and oh my gosh, this is so easy. I'm just going to eat my protein and my vegetables first. So you can mix them up, of course, and get more benefit. So you've heard me talk about continuous glucose monitoring on this talk. And if you follow me at all, you know that I talk about it all the time. So I hope that I've given you enough information that you can go away right now and really change things up. Because even if you just improve your carb quality, stop eating 3 hours before bed, go for a stroll after dinner and eat your foods in a different order. If you do that for a month, things are going to change. You don't need a glucose monitor. Things are going to shift. I guarantee it. It will make a big difference for you. However, I've been using continuous glucose monitors with my clients and with groups, and it's been fun. I think it is so fun, and it has really been interesting. And the reason is we do these hacks. We do a 4-week program, and I've got my next one's coming up in July. And over 4 weeks, we have these continuous glucose monitors on And we're learning about these hacks, and we're learning about them more in depth. And then we're trying them out. And these continuous glucose monitors give us this information in real time on our phones. We use our phones as readers. I think you saw it when I ate the eggs before the pancakes. I can scan my monitor and go, whoa, that's how I'm responding. Oh, those eggs made a difference. Or, wow, maybe I shouldn't drink a mango lassi before my Indian food comes to the table. But you can see here that, this person's, waking up and they know their fasting blood glucose is 100, and they can see that whatever they had here, brought their blood sugar up to about 150. Look, again, they went for a leisurely walk and it brought their blood sugar down. Look, they had some Thai food that spiked their blood sugar up to 2. They can see what happens. And then the next day they can see, well, yeah, I woke up with my blood sugar at 140, and it's because I had Thai food for dinner and then I had a blueberry turnover in the middle of the night. So we get to see this cause and effect so clearly. And the people who take part in this program get to be both the scientists and the subjects. The scientists and the subjects, and we can actually pull these up on a Zoom call and talk about them really objectively and see the cause and effect. So this person, like I talked to, and they're like, wow, I woke up and look, my blood sugar was high all night. And I'll be on the Zoom call with them, the whole group gets to see this. So we all get to learn from each other's blood sugar. And we can go, oh, look at last night. You had 2 walks, which is great. But you had this, curry, and something in that curry really spiked your blood sugar. So next time, maybe eat less rice or have more protein first. And so they have a chance to try this out again. Let's look at this next one. Oh, look, so you can see this one too. There were some spikes here. And this person, and it's easy to put what happened on these, put notes in. So unlike having to track your food where you have to enter in all these ingredients, on this one, you just touch your phone and you hit a note and you can just type in oatmeal or went for a walk or no food or exercise. You don't have to make a song and dance out of it. You can just type briefly what you did, so that when we get on these calls, we can really connect the dots between what works and what doesn't work. And I can give them my input because I've seen so many of these of, hey, next time, try more of this or less of that. Because everybody who starts this comes in, and I mean everybody, and their blood sugar is a hot mess because we don't know. I don't know if you caught, I interviewed another nutritionist, Julene Montgomery of Montgomery Nutrition. And she's another one of these slender people who had pre-diabetes and didn't know. And she used a continuous glucose monitor and found out that her seemingly healthy food was just wrecking her blood sugar. And so she used this to actually personalize her diet. Yeah, because what works for one person doesn't work for others. Another person I interviewed, Leah, she did this class, Leah Pinelli, who's a weight loss coach. Everybody I put on these things, if we have chips and salsa, it just spikes our blood sugar. It really causes our blood sugar to skyrocket. Leah is the only person I've seen who can eat chips and salsa and it doesn't budge her blood sugar. So she knows that actually she does not have reactive blood sugar. It's not her battle to fight. But then look at this. This is a client who'd been using a continuous glucose monitor for a few months. So after the program, and then we took a snapshot, and she's now figured out how to hack it. So look how level her blood sugar is. And this is a person who she's been using this, and she's just been, figuring out that what to put in her coffee, what to have, when to exercise. And I should say that her husband was lurking in the background and doing all the same things. Both of them ended up losing weight. I think she said she had to get a new bra, and her pants fit better. She's shopping for swimsuits now. And she's like, I feel so much more comfortable in a swimsuit. Her heartburn went away and her pain went away. And you always hear this, like people come in for one thing about their blood sugar, whatever gets them in, there's always something else like heartburn that goes away or their pain. Because remember, insulin and blood sugar affects inflammation. And if your inflammation is high, your pain levels are high. Oh, someone else came in and she did this and her hot flashes went away. Remember, because hot flashes are because of stress. I mean, stress, you have some stress, there goes, your whole face gets hot and you're sweating, you're stripping down. And blood sugar extremes are very stressful to the body. And she said, as soon as I leveled up my blood sugar, my hot flashes went away. So I'm not saying yours will, but so I actually want to invite you guys. My next class starts on July 11th, and it's a 4-week program. And in this 4-week program, before the program starts, I help you get your prescription so you can get 2 continuous glucose monitors, right? And those continuous glucose monitors will cost you about $40 each. And then during this class, we have 4 weeks, and there's usually 2, sometimes 3, but 2 live Zoom calls a week. So we can jump on and, share your data, troubleshoot, connect the dots. There's usually about 20 minutes of content. So each day we talk about a new hack, or really talk about blood sugar in depth or protein in depth. So because I want to give you the tools to become the expert in you so that you can really personalize your nutrition. Everything's recorded, and because you're not going to make all the meetings, so you can watch everything on demand. And we have a private group feed to answer questions, because some people just upload screenshots of their phone and say, hey, this happened, what should I do? And then we can answer the questions on the feed, and it's great. And the feed is on my app, and it's a HIPAA compliant feed. So this isn't on Facebook. I'm going to put the link in the hack. I'm going to put a link in the chat here for you, because I really want to invite you guys into this. I think it's a fun program. And I have a BOGO going on right now, buy one, get one free. And I'm going to keep it open through Sunday for this group, so that if you want to register, I really encourage you to register with a friend, with a roommate, a partner. Sue says she learned a lot when she was in there in April. And I do the buy one, get one free for a reason. One is there's always someone lurking anyway, so you might as well join it. So often I get someone signing up, and this is usually what happens. Husband needs it. Wife wants him to do it. He won't do it. She figures she might as well benefit from it anyway. So she signs up, gets him in anyways. He joins, and then everybody benefits. And then everybody hears the same information, so it's actually a professional telling this other person what to do, not you. You know what I'm talking about? And it's so much more fun. And I think people feel supported when they're doing it with a friend, with somebody else. It makes a big difference. So check out that link. And if you're watching this on the replay, this is the link. And it takes you to a thing where you can actually download a little ebook. Here it is. So you can download an ebook that tells you about using a continuous glucose monitor. And I'm actually going to put this in the chat, because, most of these things, if you download this free ebook, you have to put in your email. The link I just put in the chat is actually the actual PDF. So if you get that, it's just yours right there. So grab that in the chat. This little ebook gives you an overview of the process of getting a continuous glucose monitor and what it can help with and the cost of it. Because continuous glucose monitors are not just for people with diabetes. Everybody thinks, well, I don't have diabetes, so I can't get one. Not true, because I run whole groups of people on this, and I always help them get one. You do need a prescription from your doctor. You don't need insurance. You do cash pay. And like I said, it's $40 for 2 weeks. So for about $80, you've got a continuous glucose monitor that you can use. And after you finish this program, you can just keep doing it for every time you want to use a continuous glucose monitor I'm going to test some birthday cake, whatever you want to test out. I want to see how I'm doing. Just go to the pharmacy, pick up another continuous glucose monitor, slap it on for 2 weeks, and it's only $40. You don't need subscriptions from me. By the time you're done working with me, you will know what to do. And if you don't need a reader that CVS wants you to buy, your phone will do it. Yeah, this tells you everything you need to do. It's a kind of a complicated process. when I learned how to do it, it was actually a very complicated process. That's why I've made booklets. Like I have a whole instruction booklet and a whole course so that I can support you, because people run into hurdles getting these. And this way there's like you have a feed and you can message me and say, Karen, am I supposed to get this? My doctor gave me the wrong prescription code. And I'm like, here's the right prescription code. So I just take all those hurdles out and make it really easy for you. So the next one starts on July 11th. But remember, in order to start this, you want to have your continuous glucose monitors in your hand by July 11th, because we're going to install them. We'll install them live in our group. So it's important, if you want to do this, to actually get started now, which is why I have this buy one, get one free through Sunday to encourage people to, if you want to do it now. Get the BOGO, split the cost with a friend, or bring along your reluctant, partner if you're partnered. Get an appointment with your doctor, get the prescription. Some people can get the prescription by emailing their doctor through the portal. But give the doctor some information, make it easy for them, all right? And I give you all of this. And if you can't get your prescription, I always refund people. If something comes up and it just becomes a hassle, I will refund you. And I think I've done that once. But since then, we've got through to that doctor's office, and they're going to prescribe it now. So that link is in the chat for you. And as always, if you don't know where to start, I mean, I know a lot of people are like, I'm clicking links and things, but can I just talk to a person? I just want to talk to a human. I always offer free 30-minute phone calls to answer people's questions, talk to a human, because sometimes that's just faster. And for people on this call, I put in some extra appointments because I'm going out of town for a couple of days this week. Friday afternoon and Saturday morning, I opened up some slots for a free call if you have questions. And I'm going to put that link in the chat. I know all these links in the chat. But on my website, there's always a place like book a free call, book a free call. So if you have questions about this, or you want to know, is this for me? Would this be appropriate? How can I do this? Then just book that and we can talk. You can also message me and things. Yeah. All right. So do you guys have any questions for me? I know I went through things really quickly. Are there extra questions? If you raise your hand, I'll be happy to unmute you. Oh, Lisa says, I'm interested in a CGM, but have girls weekend. Can I start calls? So yes, you can. You're going to have it on, and it's fine if you miss. Everybody's going to miss some of the calls. Nobody makes all of them. So you can just watch the replays from everything and apply after the trip. Yeah, you can totally do that, Lisa. That's fine. Yeah, and I don't know what time our Zoom calls are going to be. What I tend to do is I wait until the early bird registration is over. So by Sunday, I will send out a message to everybody who's registered with, yes, you can swim with a CGM on, absolutely. And I'll send out a survey of good times, and then I schedule our group meetings so that everybody is able to attend at least one of the live sessions per week, because I really think everyone should at least have one opportunity to ask questions live per week. And then we always make that work out. You're welcome, Mickey. Yeah. So what's interesting about using a continuous glucose monitor, when I started learning about this, I found there was very little information available on how to use them. And so a couple of the ways I learned how to do this, I'm almost embarrassed to say, was Facebook groups for diabetics and YouTube, because there's a couple of guys. So I use a Freestyle Libra system made by Abbott because it's much less expensive than the Dexcom. And so we can do a cash pay. It's really accessible. These have been in use over in Europe and Asia much longer than the States. And so you get all these type 1 diabetic young people, and they're making money off YouTube, reviewing different CGMs and talking about it and best practice. How do you get them to stick longer and use? So I just I just binged all the YouTube videos and learned from these guys and from other people using them on Facebook. And so Gina about the swimming. So they are approved to you to swim for up to 30 minutes. However, I hear repeatedly people saying, I was at the beach all weekend in the water and it worked fine. It was fine. You can get covers, waterproof. They're like clear Band-Aids, those like waterproof Band-Aids. And you can get those patches that fit over the CGMs, and those are great. And some people like those. Yeah, the Tegaderm patch is great. And that also keeps them sticking longer so that you don't knock them off. Hey, thanks for coming, Mickey. So there's all these different things, and I talk all about this in the group program to support them. Am I seeing everybody? Oh, thanks, Sue. The course, she says, the course is worth it to take all the mystery out of understanding how our body is responding to everything. But that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I love using a CGM because I want to be in a position to give you some information so that you can be the expert. And frankly, I can sit up here and say, do all these things, and it feels kind of overwhelming because you don't know, well, how much do I have to do? Do I have to do all of these things? And when you have a CGM, it kind of allows you to do the minimum effort to get the result you want, right? Like you want to do as little as possible of different healthy things in order to, put off heart disease. Sue is laughing and nodding her head, but right? Like, I don't want to, what's the minimum? I mean, that's hacking, right? That is why I chose the word hack. Good night, Gina. I know you're on Eastern time. Thanks for jumping in. Christy says, this information sounds interesting and hopefully useful in understanding. Oh, this is a direct message, so I will not read it out loud. Great. Yeah, and do give me if you want to have a call with me, then do just grab that link in the chat and book a free call with me either Friday or Saturday. That'll get you in so you can ask questions about this and still get in on the BOGO offer. So if you're thinking about it, be thinking about who you want to do it with. Do you want to do it with your reluctant partner who should do it but doesn't want to, or do you want to do it with your best friend? I'll leave that up to you. All right. Any more questions? This is great. You're welcome. Yeah. So Sue's got hers on. You can put them on your arm. You can put them on your chest. I'll tell you all about the different options you have. That's what you do this for. All right. Well, we'll get this recorded and send the replay to you later on. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys, and have a lovely week.